But first, Opposition Leader Peter Dutton today put out a big challenge to the Prime Minister, who's off on yet another foreign trip, this time to Washington.
I think it would also be in our country's best interest, Prime Minister, to go via Tel Aviv and provide support to the Israeli leadership. It is important for us to be able to stand with Israel at this time, as other world leaders have done. That should be the priority, frankly, of any international travel at the moment, so that we can seek to be part of an alliance to keep the pressure down on those who seek to have a wider conflict in the region.
No response to that challenge from Anthony Albanese, who's actually facing a revolt today from some Labor Party MPs not happy that his government's been supporting Israel. But I reckon it's time Albanese stood up for Israel by telling the truth. Because I'm now going to show you stunning footage from that Gaza hospital that was supposedly bombed by Israel. Footage that exposes a massive lie. And what it shows is this, that the Prime Minister must correct the record. He must tell the truth. He must undo the damage he did yesterday, and which his Industry Minister Ed Husic and other Labor MPs have done today. So, Prime Minister, let Australians know that Israel did not bomb that hospital, killing hundreds of civilians. In fact, the incredible truth is this hospital was not bombed. It was not targeted, as Albanese implied yesterday, even if he doesn't or didn't accuse Israel directly.
We condemn any indiscriminate attacks and targeting of civilian infrastructure, including hospitals.
In fact, Daylight in Gaza has revealed the lies of the Hamas terrorist group that runs Gaza, blatant lies about an Israeli bombing that the media treated as true, causing anti-Israel riots around the world and fooling Labor MPs as well. You see, reporters at the site can now see with their own eyes and confirm that what was hit by a rocket was not the hospital, but the car park outside. You can see for yourself the hospital is actually still standing. Aerial images confirm that some rocket did hit the car park, but it left only a very small crater and broken windows, and some cars burned in a fireball caused by the rocket's fuel. But the explosion from the rocket itself was so small that most cars weren't even knocked over. Now, that clearly was no Israeli bomb or missile like its JDAM, which leaves a much, much bigger crater. And as I showed you last night, at least 2 camera shots show a rocket fired from behind the hospital, allegedly by the Islamic Jihad terrorist group, malfunctions, falls to the ground, hits the car park. And the US has concluded this was not an Israeli attack, but a misfiring Palestinian rocket. Now today, the ABC, which still refuses to unambiguously clear Israel, accidentally exposed this truth and didn't even know it. It interviewed an activist doctor from that Gaza hospital who was trying to paint this on air as some Israeli war crime, the deliberate destruction of a hospital. But midway through his rant, he admitted something that the ABC interviewer, Raf Epstein, didn't pick up, that this explosion actually occurred outside his hospital.
Yesterday's massacre was a war crime. He stumbled out of the operating suite, and I could then see the fact that the courtyard of the hospital itself was on fire, and the ambulances were in that courtyard were on fire, and there were 2 palm trees that had caught fire.
The evidence is now so clear that this was not an Israeli attack, yet today we had Labor MPs exploiting this tragedy, in my opinion, to again attack Israel as the war criminal here, as a country declaring war against civilians, a war crime. Here is the Industry Minister, Ed Husic, for instance, asking why we weren't lighting up our buildings for the Palestinians, victims of this collective punishment.
The number of Palestinians that have been killed so far equates to the number of people who lost their lives 9/11. We don't see any public landmarks in Australia that are being lit up in red, black, white and green. I feel very strongly that Palestinians are being collectively punished here for Hamas's barbarism.
Other Labor MPs were in more open revolt against Labor's siding with Israel in its war against, let's face it, a terrorist-led Islamist regime.
No food, no energy, no way out. It is hard to argue that it is not a form of collective punishment.
So IDF is a terrorist organisation as well?
It is an army. Can I just say that we stand with the people of Gaza.
But if some Labor MPs were bad, the Greens were again far, far worse. In fact, they were despicable. Now, the Greens leader, Adam Band, who seems to be trawling for votes from anti-Israel bigots and anti-Semites, refused to accept the evidence that Palestinians, not Israelis, had hit that hospital. And then he lied.
The Israeli military changed its story on it and initially said it was Hamas and then said it was Islamic Jihad. And secondly, it is very difficult in this environment to get independent verification. Civilian casualties is what happens when there is an unlawful invasion of 2.2 million civilians forced into such a small area.
I don't think anyone serious can trust the word that Adam Band says about this conflict. Absolutely not. Take these falsehoods. Israel actually has not yet invaded Gaza. And those rockets the Palestinians are still firing are clearly meant to provoke an Israeli invasion. And the reason Palestinian civilians are dying is because Hamas is deliberately surrounding itself with civilians so Israel cannot fight back without hurting them. They're the ones responsible. But in the world of the Greens, no matter what these terrorists who run Gaza do to Jews, it's always going to be Israel's fault. Gives them a real license to kill and rape and kidnap. So I think it's so important now that Albanese does now defend the truth, because this sick hatred of Israel and of the Jews is getting way out of hand. Our Prime Minister must insist now that Israel did not bomb that hospital. This is being used as a recruiting technique, gambit for new terrorists in the future, right? This is serious. And isn't the Prime Minister the man that's been complaining about misinformation? So do something about this one, Prime Minister. Say today what US President Joe Biden said yesterday, that this hospital, these hospital grounds were hit by a Palestinian rocket, not an Israeli one. It's not hard.
Based on what I've seen, it appears as though it was done by the other team, not you.
So that's what Albanese should say as well today. And if our Prime Minister does not dare say even that, the truth, what does that say about this government?